Well, good morning, you Hope friends. Thank you so much for joining us in person and via live stream. Thank you so much. We will be doing responsive reading from Psalms 13. It's in hymnals. It can be found on page 787. And for those of you at home, if you would like to look it up online, follow along with us. Maybe it's slightly different, but you should get the same message. At least we should hope. I will begin by reading the regular print, and you will respond in the bold text. How long, O Lord, will you forget me? Forever? How long will you hide your face from me?
How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and every day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me?
Look at me and answer, O Lord, my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death.
My enemy will and my foes will rejoice when I fall.
But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation.
I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good. Well, good morning. I'd like to echo what Phil said. It's great to have you with us, whether you're here in person, whether you're joining on live stream, or watching the video later. As we prepare our hearts for worship this morning, please join me in prayer. Holy God, we come together to worship. People who would like to think that we love you with all our hearts and souls, with all our might. But there are so many things in our lives that clamor for our attention. We often relegate you to Sundays, times when we need you to rescue us. Most of us really do want you to be the one in whom we live and whom we have be. We really do want to hear your voice above all the other voices. But we get bogged down in our daily routine. We forget who we are. We forget who you are. We forget what the church is supposed to be. So, Lord, we're standing before you today with our human foibles and our short attention spans, asking that you would make yourself known to us, that you would help us recognize the presence of the Holy, that you would continue to challenge us and inspire us, make us into the people you want us to be. God, we're aliens and sojourners in this world, but you invite us to be your guests. You lavishly offer us hospitality and lovingly welcome us into you. You invite us to share in the abundance of your kingdom and to help make that kingdom a reality on earth as it is in heaven. So we pray for an end to poverty and to the systems that further it. We pray for an end to the institutions that cheat and take advantage of people. We pray for an end to racism. We pray for an end to all forms of prejudice. We pray for an end to oppression. We pray for an end to all types of violence, domestic abuse, interpersonal abuse, violence between nations, sometimes accepted with a shoulder shrug and inevitable. As people of faith, we declare in the name of Jesus that there's a better world possible. God, you've shown us that providing hospitality to strangers opens a doorway into the kingdom of God. Remind us that when we offer hospitality to others, we're receiving Christ into our midst, so fulfilling the law of love. May we do this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord, who taught us to pray this prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory.
Growing up, I've always heard that Psalms is a hymn book to the Bible. But I always felt it odd because we never really sang the Psalms. It was something that we always just said. But the Psalms were written, in fact, to be sung. In Joshua, Joshua was encouraged to not only keep the law and the commandments, but Joshua was encouraged to speak them daily and to meditate by muttering them. So day and night let it not depart from your mouth, and may you mutter it. And so the Psalms, if you look at it, the Psalms really capsulizes the law, prophets. It also covers a lot of the history. It covers the Exodus journey. It covers a lot of David's life. At Asbury, led by the current president and his wife, tenants, they have sent the Psalms to music. So something that we'll begin doing is singing songs. Now, unfortunately, because of the rise in COVID cases, and with the still being prevalent, we're not going to be doing congregational singing. We're going to restrict it just to solo singing. So for now, today, we'll start the singing of songs, but it will just be solo singing, not choir. Sorry, I didn't say that. So, if you will listen, this is Psalms 13, what we read earlier, but it'll now be put to music.
I will, come before the Lord and of confession. Lord, if we were to name all the gods and idols that we put before you, we would be here for a very long time. We elevate other people, other forces, and saviors. We turn away from the hurt of others to preserve our own comfort. We don't speak against oppression because we're afraid of how we'll be received. We get so busy we don't even notice how creation all witnesses to your goodness and grace. Forgive us, God. Help us to let go of what we value most so that we can open our emptiness, our hearts, our lives, to healing and loving presence of Jesus Christ. Persistently, patiently, lovingly, God pours out grace and joy into our lives, healing our brokenness and forgiving our sin. Beloved, we're sent to love. Forgiven, we are free to forgive. And given grace, we can offer our gifts to everyone we meet. Thanks be to God.
Now the reading of Scripture comes from Deuteronomy 5, verses 32 through chapter 6, verse 25. I will conclude the reading by saying this is the word of God for the people of God, and I would ask that you respond back with thanks be to God. So Moses told the people, "You must be careful to obey all the commands of the Lord your God. Follow his instructions in every detail. Stay on the path that the Lord your God has commanded you to follow. Then you will live long and prosperous lives. the land that you're about to enter. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded you to keep. You must obey them in the land you're about to enter and occupy. And you and your children and grandchildren must fear the Lord and God as long as you live. If you obey all His decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is God. Let me repeat that. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God and Lord alone. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. You must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land He swore to give you. He made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities, and you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig. And you will eat from vineyards and olive trees you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget the Lord who rescued you from slavery, the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and serve Him. When you take an oath, you must use only His name. You must not worship any of the gods of neighboring nations, for the Lord your God is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you. He will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test the Lord your God, as you did when you complained of the suffering. You must diligently obey the commandments of the Lord your God, all the laws and decrees He has given you. Do what is right and good in the sight of God, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to give your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies of the land, just as the Lord said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that the Lord our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, for Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, the Lord brought us out of Egypt with His strong hand. The Lord did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt, Pharaoh, and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so He could give us this land that He had sworn to give our ancestors. The Lord our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear Him so He can continue to bless us in our lives, as He has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands that the Lord our God has given us. This is the word of God for the people of God.
We're going to go ahead and do our children's moment right now. Gather your kids around if you're watching via Zoom or via video later. Have you ever heard the story about Morris the monkey? Well, Morris the monkey was a very forgetful monkey. He forgot everything. He forgot to put his toys away. He forgot to brush his teeth. He'd forget to say his prayers at night. And one day, Morris's mother said to him, "Be careful when you're out playing in the jungle. There's a lion out there who likes to eat little monkeys for lunch. And because you're so forgetful, I'm going to tie a string around your finger to help you remember." And then Morris went out to play. And before too long, Morris ran into his friend Baboon. And Baboon noticed the string on Morris's finger. And he said, "What do you have a string tied around your finger for?" And Morris said, "To help me remember." Baboon was impressed and went on his way. A little while later, Morris saw his friend the elephant. The elephant noticed the string on Morris's finger and said, "Why do you have a string on your finger?" And Morris said, "To help me remember." The elephant wasn't impressed. The elephant said, "Elephants don't need string." Elephants never forget. He went on to say. Later, Morris ran into his friend, the parrot. Of course, the parrot noticed the string and said, "Why do you have a string tied around your finger?" And Morris said, "To help you remember." And the parrot said, "Help you remember what?" And Morris said, I forgot." The parrot laughed and flew away. A little while later, Morris was skipping down the path when he came along the lion. Morris noticed that the lion had a string tied around his paw. And Morris said, "Why do you have that string tied around your paw?" And the lion said, "To remind me to eat lunch." All of a sudden, Morris remembered what the string around his finger meant, and he jumped into the trees and swung away as fast as he could. And ever since that day, Morris never needed that string again. We all forget things sometimes, but the Bible tells us that there's one thing we need to make sure that we never forget. In Deuteronomy 6:12, what Bill just read for us, it says, "Be careful not to forget the Lord." We all remember the Lord when we're in trouble, like when the lion's getting ready to eat us. But when things are going well, it's awfully easy to forget about God. So maybe we should all tie a string around our finger. And if you're here with us in person today, I've got some strings on the back table if you want to take one with you and tie it. Let's pray. Father, we forget things all the time. Please help us never to forget you and never to forget your Son, Jesus. Pray this in his precious name. In his book, $3 Worth of God, Bill writes some fascinating insights on what most people, even those who claim to be Christians, seem to want from God these days. Reese writes, "I'd like to buy $3 worth of God, please. Not enough to explode my soul or disturb my sleep. Just enough to equal a cup of warm milk or a snooze in the sunshine. I don't want enough of him to make me love someone of another race or hit beats with a vibrator. I want ecstasy, not transformation. I want the warmth of the womb, not a new birth. I want a pound of the eternal in a paper sack. I'd like $3 worth of God." Now, this compartmentalization of God, this confining him to our churches and prayers and Bible reading, but never letting him impact the other dominant areas of our lives, has become common practice in Western Christianity. We've allowed ourselves almost unthinkingly to position God as our good luck charm, a little pick-me-up when times are getting rough. But we seem to not let him to the center of our lives in our work, economic activity, politics, or view of others. We have $3 worth of God at church and in our private life, but not such a huge supply that he invades everything else. This is exactly the type of compartmentalization that Moses was warning the nation of Israel in the passage that we read today. Bill read to us from the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy literally means second law. In this case, Moses was giving the law of the Lord to the nation of Israel for the second time. Why was he giving it a second time? Well, they needed a refresher course because they've been wandering around in the desert for 40 years after they were given the law the first time. See, what had happened was God told Moses to send 12 spies to check out the land that God had promised them, and then bring a report back to Israel. And all the spies said, "This land is awesome. It's flowing with milk and honey and great produce and awesome vegetation." However, 10 of the 12 spies said, "The people who live there are huge and they're warriors, and we have no chance to take this land. We would get crushed in battle." Only Joshua and Caleb among the spies believed that they could take the land. But all the other Israelites believed the other spy. So because of their lack of faith and lack of commitment to God's command, the nation of Israel was forced to wander the desert for 40 years. And so everyone in that generation, except for Joshua and Caleb, died off. So here they are, about to get a second chance at entering the promised land. And Moses is once again laying out the law of the Lord for a generation that didn't hear it the first time around. And he reminds them over and over and over again, even in the short passage that we just read, that they need to pay attention and obey everything that God has commanded them, lest they end up like their ancestors. And one of the most important passages in Judaism, Deuteronomy 6:4, begins what is known as the Shema, S-H-E-M-A. And that continues to serve as a prayer used by Jews throughout the world even today. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Where did I put it? But it means, hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And because God is the only God, the nation of Israel is told that they're to love him with all their heart, and all their soul, and with all their strength, commit themselves wholeheartedly to these commandments. And as we've been discussing week after week here, the Old Testament inevitably makes an appearance in the ministry of Jesus and in the book of Revelation as it tells about the coming of the new heaven. And during Jesus' ministry, he was asked what the greatest commandment is. And he responds by quoting from this passage in Deuteronomy. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. And he adds to it, love your neighbor as yourself. And in the Gospel of Luke, a man responds to that by saying, well, who's my neighbor? Who do I have to love? Jesus responds with the story of the Good Samaritan, in which a man is beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. And two good, moral Jewish religious leaders come by, and they see the man lying there half dead. And they turn their heads and just keep going. But then a Samaritan, a member of a group of people who Jews considered to be foreigners and adherents of the false religion, a Samaritan came upon the man and took pity on him, took care of him out of his own resources, paid to make sure he was taken care of. Jesus made the religious leaders the villains of the story. They made the foreigner of a different religion the hero of the story. It would be like making U.S. Christians the villains and making a Syrian Muslim the hero of the story today. So by telling this story, Jesus is answering the question, who is my neighbor? With the answer, everyone. Everyone's your neighbor. You have to love everyone. Not just people who look like you, not just people with the same religion, not just people from the same country. Everyone. This is what it means to wholeheartedly keep the commandments. And when we fast forward to the book of Revelation, John's instructed by the exalted Christ to give a message to the church at Laodicea, the city that would be in modern day Turkey. And in this message to the church in Laodicea, which can be found in Revelation 3:14 and following, Jesus says this, I know all the things that you do, that you're neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you're like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. You say, I'm rich, I have everything I want, I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you're wretched and miserable, and poor and blind and naked. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Anyone who has ears to hear must listen to the Spirit, understand what he's saying. What this message to the church at Laodicea is saying is that the people in that church are doing things half-heartedly. They're trying to make do with a $3 serving of God. They think they're doing enough by paying lip service to God and then pursuing their own self-interest by becoming rich in material things, by pledging allegiance to things other than God and trying to reap the benefits while at the same time continuing claiming the cost. And what does Jesus say about this? He says that they're like lukewarm water. Not hot like coffee or tea, not cold like ice water, just nasty room temperature water. You ever drink out of a drinking fountain in an old building and it tastes warm and coffee? I think about when I read this passage. And actually our English translation softened this a little bit, because the Greek word here actually means to vomit. Jesus says that this lukewarm $3 serving of God kind of Christianity makes him sick to his stomach. Those who wholeheartedly follow the commandments will love God and love others. And so this is what Moses is communicating regarding the law of the Lord. The people of God could not afford to be lukewarm when it came to putting God at the center of all of their activities. They weren't to make family decisions without having the commands of God. They weren't to make political decisions without having the commands of God at the forefront. They weren't to make economic decisions without having the commands of God. They weren't to make educational decisions without having the commands of God. They weren't to make relational decisions without having the commands of God. This wasn't a $3 serving of God that they pulled out of the paper sack when they visited the tabernacle. One scholar had this to say. What many now consider to be outside of a religious dimensions of life, for example, family, political, economic, and intellectual activities, are just as covenanted as those things that are conventionally religious. In other words, even the things that we sometimes consider to be outside the bounds of religion, family and politics and economics and intellectual activities, those things were covered by the covenant that God had with the nation of Israel. And the same thing goes for us. A $3 serving of God isn't going to cut it. A $3 serving of God is what the church of Laodicea was trying to have when Jesus condemned their lukewarm faith. A $3 serving of God doesn't cover the familial and political and economic and intellectual. And if we're honest, that's the way we want it sometimes. Because it's easier to be selfish in those areas when we don't put God at the center. But our covenant with God through Jesus Christ doesn't allow us to pledge loyalty to, or to pledge allegiance to, or to be guided by anything other than God. I talked to the kids about not forgetting God, in the passage. If Israel forgot to put God at the center of their activities, then what was going to happen in this new promised land was that they would begin to show allegiance to the Canaanite gods in order to reap any benefits that they could. Sound familiar at all? The people of God take God out of the equation. They're left to pursue their own self-interest with no regard for God or for others. If the people of God take God out of the equation, they're free to pursue economic exploitation. They're free to pursue policies that are good for them but bad for others. They're free to pledge allegiance to anything and everything that they think might help them be better off. And if you're familiar with the Old Testament narrative, you know that the nation of Israel did this again and again and again. They started putting their attention and passion on other things, thinking that those things would help them be better off. And they neglect God first. And it always ends up being a disaster. Because $3 worth of God. Now, I want to be clear about something. This passage isn't preaching karma. Right? It's not saying where if we're good boys and girls, good things will happen to us. And if we're bad boys and girls, then bad things. What this is telling us is that God has told us how we can make the world the best that it can possibly be. And that's by loving Him and loving others. How we can make His kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's by loving Him and loving others. It's not a mysterious, spiritual, mystical thing. It's simple and practical. The world's better when we give our allegiance to God and when we love other people in all of our actions. Just think about what kind of world we would live in if even just those who claimed to be Christian sought to keep God at the center of every aspect of their life and sought to always treat others with love. 65% of the adult population in the United States identify themselves as Christian. That's approximately 136 million adults. If 136 million people in this country put God first, rather than pledging allegiance to nationalism and economic self-interest, fear of the other, we would see an end to poverty and hunger. We would see an end of economic exploitation. We would see the end of inaccessible health care. We would see the end of million-dollar churches with no time for the poor. We would see the end of racist laws and unjust policies and white supremacy, the end of xenophobia, the end of the love of wars and bombings and drone strikes to kill innocent people and then gloss over it as collateral damage? What would it look like if we never made any decision, if we never took any actions, and never passively accepted anything without first considering these commands that the Lord has set before us? What would it look like if those of us who claim Christianity put God first in everything? And I know that this is something that the church talks about a lot, right? Putting God first in everything. But if we're honest, it's something that by and large we've only paid lip service to. I'm terrified that churches have led millions of people astray by focusing so much on the personal relationship with Jesus and the private nature of faith, and forgetting to talk about the social and public nature of faith. That we've convinced people that all they need is to have that private peace, that $3 worth of God, they'll be good to go. We've left a whole lot of people wondering what difference it makes to follow Jesus Christ in the here and now. Churches have been so busy preaching life after death that we've left a whole lot of people wondering if it's worth living life before death. Because people can look at a $3 serving of God and realize that it doesn't make much of a difference in the nitty-gritty of everyday life. And that's why it's up to the people of God to show people more, to demonstrate that God changes hearts and lives and entire society. Demonstrate that we don't serve a teeny tiny God, but we serve a God that's so dang big that if we even began to comprehend it, our brains would explode. The late author and preacher Brennan Manning once said, "I preach the gospel to the financial community in Wall Street, the airmen and women of the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, 1,000 places in Nairobi. I've been to churches in Bangor, Maine, Miami, Chicago, St. Louis, Seattle, San Diego, and honest, the God of some Christians is too small for me, because he's not the God of the world. He's not the God revealed by Jesus Christ, who at this very moment comes to your seat and says, I have $3 worth of God isn't going to cut it." So hear, O followers of Christ, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love him with all your soul and heart and mind and strength. Love all people as you love yourself. If we do this, then we'll be blessed and we'll be a blessing to others, because we'll be doing God's will on earth as it's done in heaven. We're trying to be followers of God with a $3 serving of God. We're depriving ourselves and we're depriving the world of the glory of God. So, friends, I say to you in the words of Moses, commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands. Repeat them again and again. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as a reminder. May you truly make God the center of your every decision and your every action. May you love God with everything you've got and love people with everything you do. And may his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Kind and merciful God, may your love for us animate all we do. May our love become complete. Lord, make us instruments of your love. May the church, the people of God, never cease to proclaim by its teaching and life and liturgy that love of God and neighbor is the heart of the gospel, and that people are God's gift to all. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. May people not lose their hearts in today's economic systems, profit and efficiency, production and competition. May we keep giving first place to human relationships, friendship, and respect. Lord, make us instruments of your love. May we have room in our homes and our hearts for refugees and strangers, May we learn to share our goods and ourselves with the last and the least who are so loved by God. Lord, make us instruments of your love. May those who don't know how to forgive, those who have not experienced much happiness in life, or those whose longings have not been fulfilled, encounter God in our attention. Lord, make us instruments of your love. In our Christian communities, may we uplift one another rather than tear down, accept each other with trust and affection, forgive one another from the heart, and go forward together in hope and love. Lord, make us instruments of your love. Father, help us to love you and one another with your measure, which is unconditional, without measure. May we never be satisfied with $3 worth of God, but always be seeking after your will and your heart, as you form us to be ever more like Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God. So this time we're going to move into our time of communion. And we received communion last week. And I know that New Hope's practice has been to receive communion only on a semi-regular monthly basis. But after some fun prayer and discussion, Phil and I feel led to have us receive communion on a much more regular basis. And there are a few reasons for this. The first is the fact that the early church did this from the very beginning, through the first several centuries of its existence. Catholic and Orthodox churches and many Protestant churches still practice communion on a weekly basis. So it's consistent with the history of the faith. And secondly, communion is what's referred to as a means of grace. And means of grace are things that we do or participate in which open us up to God and position us so that we can be drawn closer to Him. And through that, God graciously works to transform and make us more like Christ. So we wanted to offer an explanation for why we feel it's important to practice communion more consistently on a regular basis rather than just spring. And so, friends, we come to this table because we're claimed in covenant. Because we're still learning what covenant and togetherness mean, how they look and move and feel. Because we long for liberation. Because we thirst for justice. Because we know the need for grace and freedom in our flesh and our bones. Because we want more than a trifling $3. This is not the table of New Hope Church. This is Christ's table. And you're invited to bring your whole life, and all are welcome. Period. Because we remember on the night he was arrested, while the powers and principalities of the empire and supremacy and dominance raged, Jesus gathered people, invited their fears and longings, invited people into a radical solidarity, justice, love, and action, healing of and in the world, for which he gave his life. Jesus took bread and broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take and eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Share this and remember." Then Jesus took the cup and blessed it and gave thanks for it and said, "Take and drink. This is the power of my life's blood. The cup of blessing. Share this and remember." And so we remember, we offer, we receive, and we share this nourishing feast because we know how to nourish each other in ordinary and extraordinary ways. Because we need each other and we need this sacrament, this visible sign of life-giving grace, flowing and overflowing. So, as Phil plays for us, you can pick up one of the sets of the elements there off the middle table, and you can return to your seat and work on getting it open, and then we'll receive the body and blood as well. So friends, as a community of faith, let us receive the body of Christ. As one community of faith seeking to love God and others, let us receive the blood of Christ for
Our closing song will be Take My Life and Let It Be. Let this be our prayer today. I invite you to listen and to enter into the final worship. May the Lord bless you with his presence, with his favor this week. May he place within you hunger and desire for more of him. That $3 worth of them will not be our satisfaction, that we would crave them. May this be our blessing.